Well, let's get to our guest. He can help answer some of these questions, and it's a man who's been on here before. It's Mr. Kory Woods. He's joining the program. Kory, welcome to the show. We're
What's
happy
going on?
We're over here screaming at each other. It's a perfect time for you to join the program. You can check Kory out. He crushes it. Detroit Lions stuff and Detroit Pistons. He's doing both for M Live. Me and him go way back to our former employer, which, by the way, Adam Middoon, happy for you. But to continue, Kory, I do want to ask you to start off. We were over here. We talk about this a lot, Kory, about Brad Holmes' philosophy with BPA, because that's something he talks about. Free agency, you fill holes. Draft, you go get dudes. How from like Brad Holmes' perspective to you, at least from a fan, it's so hard to predict the draft because we always go to positional needs. Like they need a corner, they need a defensive end. How do you think Brad balances that with trying to find the best players, but also knowing that they need a corner, they need more help on the edge? Like, how do you think he kind of determines that?
First off, thanks for having me. And that is a great question. If I can just kind of, I guess you say, psychoanalyze Brad's thoughts, I think he tackles it from a perspective of which player is going to fit their culture first and then kind of balance it out with the positional need. That's the way that I've kind of seen Brad be able to do it because, I mean, remember back to when they were looking at when they drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown in what was that, 2021, people were screaming the whole time that he needed to draft a wide receiver, draft a wide receiver, draft a wide receiver, draft a wide receiver. But what did Brad do? Brad waited to that fourth round, and he not only got arguably one of the top 5 receivers in that draft, as we see now, but he also got a guy that fit that culture. So I think that's kind of what Brad does. I mean, this guy is a wizard. We have to remember that he's scouted over 20 Pro Bowl selections with his time with the Rams before he even got to the Lions. So he's kind of like a mad scientist when it comes to this stuff. So just me, my perspective, I think he balanced it out by the culture fit weighted with the positional need.
Yeah, and Kory, kind of 2 days out now, do you have any, with the draft at 29 or even outside of 29, do you have any specific players that you're kind of looking at that you would love to see Brad Holmes kind of go at, whether it's defensive line, like any specific players that you love in this draft for them?
Well, it's kind of a tricky question, to be quite honest, because I guess you can say immediately after the Super Bowl, after the season started, we were thinking that the Lions were going to they were in a position to go best player available because they were set. But then you lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Then you lose Cam Sutton to his off the field situation. Now you're thrust from being able to just take the best player available to now actually needing to fill a hole. And the only reason, and that's why I think that in this draft they're probably going to go defense, and they're probably going to go towards the secondary because they signed a couple of guys. I mean, they brought a Mick Robinson in, but I'm thinking that I don't see him as a starter. Carlton Davis, he's probably going to be your CB1, CB2, however you got to do it, but you're still going to need another corner. And unless you're going to go out of free agency and go get up a Gilmore, and you're now in a position where you really have to take a hard look at corner because I think if they were not in this position with their secondary, they could have started looking to fill up that D line.
Love that. Yeah, love the defensive thought.
I don't know if you heard the conversation before you joined, Kory, but we were talking about the possibility of wide receiver at 29. I'm very pro wide receiver at 29, and there's a couple of them. They're not anti. Jeff, he's pretty anti against it, but where's your stance on that as far as where Brad Holmes goes at 29 with the receiver?
Well, as far as receiver, I am very anti-receiver at 29, and here's why. I believe that there are options out there in free agency that they can go ahead and fill up that need. Right now, you have Amon-Ra, you have J-Mo, you have Khalif Raymond's going to be coming back from injury, so that's going to be something to monitor. When I talked to him in the locker room cleanups, he said he thinks he'll be ready to go. But the interesting thing is that they brought back Donovan Peoples-Jones. Now, we just really followed this guy's career. And I said this a couple of days ago, no disrespect to Baker Mayfield, but we're now going to really be able to see what DPJ can do with a real quarterback in Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be an intriguing scenario right there where you may not necessarily have to go in free agents, have to go draft a wide receiver. And there's also a guy that we're all familiar with in Detroit. His name is DJ Chark. He's out there. Last year he was on the Panthers a 1-year deal for $5 million, and things did not go as well as we all know with Carolina. But he's a guy that you could bring back in, knows the system, and you could probably get him on the cheap right now because of the past season he had, and he might need to change the scenery. That is somebody that you could get. There's a couple of guys out there in free agency that you can get or go later down in the draft if you want to add some depth, but I don't think wide receiver at 29 is something they have to do. I think that is something they could have done if they didn't have this past situation with their secondary.
Common Kory W. Continue, Mike.
And Kory, we've talked about it. We've asked it a few times. Coming up on Thursday, do you think it's more likely they trade up or trade back?
Well, from where they're picking, I don't see them. From where they're picking, I don't see them trading back. What the heck did I just do? From where they're picking, I don't see them trading back unless they're getting some type of haul. I mean, they're already at the bottom of the draft. And I know that Brad Holmes is going to prioritize doing what's best for his team. So if he can trade back and get the nice haul, he's going to do that. But let's just keep it real. The NFL draft is in Detroit. I seriously doubt that Brad Holmes is going to deny Lions fans from seeing a first-rounder walk across that stage. So unless he's getting some type of sick deal that he can really sell to the public back, I don't see him trading back.
And Kory, it's funny, we had you on last time, and I asked you that question, the over-under for how many guys get extended. Well, who knew? We were all wrong. 0. Jared, St. Brown, and Panay, none of them got extended, Kory. I get that Brad has a plan, but can you kind of give some insight to maybe how he's approaching this thing? Is he going to wait closer to the season? How do you think this plays out at this point?
I'm going to be honest. This is one I'm in the dark on because, as you said, I literally thought that this would have been done by now. And if we see what just happened with wide receivers recently, and we saw what just happened with Kirk Cousins, who's coming off an Achilles injury and the deal he got, I mean, Jared Goff is probably chomping at the bit right now. He's salivating like, oh, I'm about to kill. Because just look at what he's done here. I mean, this guy came here, first season, 3 wins, next season, 9, and narrowly missed the playoffs. Now the guy, 3rd year, changed the whole organization, takes them to the NFC Championship, 2 quarters away from their first Super Bowl appearance. It is no fault to his own that things did not turn out that way. This guy is going to be able to break the bank. So I was really shocked that his deal did not get taken care of earlier because it probably would have been at a not necessarily a cheaper deal, but maybe a more team-friendly one. Now, Goff can really command the bank. And same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's a team player guy, but now you're looking at all the money that these guys are getting, and you look at his production, and he's really been one of the better wide receivers over the past couple of years in the NFL. So he's going to be able to command a big deal, or he could. Not trying to scare Lions fans, but you never know. This guy could be a training camp holdout.
Mm-hmm. That would be scary if that happened. Kind of with the contracts too stuff, Kory. The one thing I feel like no one's talking about is Aleem McNeil, and I believe that he's on his last year as well. Is that and kind of I know Panay as well. He's up for an extension. Do you think the Aleem McNeil thing is anything? Because no one's talked about it. It hasn't really gotten brought up. Do you think that's something to kind of keep an eye on this year? Especially if he has like another big year, and then he's going to probably command big time money too. And we keep having these conversations that you just can't keep all of these guys on the team. Is that like a big thing to look at? Is this a Aleem McNeil situation this year as well?
Oh, absolutely. You definitely have to look at that because, like you just said, they have to pay so many guys. And if we're just being honest about it, the guys that we just talked about first, there's a reason that Aleem McNeil is at the end of it. Not because he's not a good player, but when you're talking about it in terms of priority, you have to lock up Goff. You have to lock up St. Brown. You have to lock up Panay. I know some people have said in the past, well, you don't have to really lock up Goff just yet. If he doesn't do anything this year, you can go to Hendon Hooker. The unknown is always sexy to everybody because you don't know what it is. No, you got to lock up those first 3 guys. So that's why I just think that Aleem is something to monitor, but I think even he has to know that those 3 guys are going to get taken care of first.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of transitioning out of the lines, but it has to do with the draft. I think we can all assume that Caleb Williams is going to be #1 selection. He's going to go to the Bears. Kory, what do you think as we're just talking rookie year, because I think there's some people that are calling for rookie of the year, potentially the Bears make it to the playoffs. What do you think Caleb's impact on the division will be year one?
Well, I think he could possibly have a solid year, all things considered. But at the end of the day, and this is no disrespect to them, it's actually having faith that the Bears will do right by our quarterback, and we've seen that time and time again. They haven't. Well, maybe they're doing it right now. I mean, but I still think they have to address that offensive line a little bit. But first year, I think that I think I can see him struggling a little bit. But I mean, if we're just being real, this guy has a talent. So he may just have the rookie hiccups, and that's about it. Or who knows? He could turn into CJ Stroud, which would be very scary for the division. But
Especially with that defense.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, and the thing is, he has the weapons to be able to do that. So I'm going to say he's going to be decent.
Okay.
And Kory, I know you kind of talked about it earlier, but what's a bigger position of need in your eye going into the draft, edge or getting someone with opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, or getting another corner in there? And which one would you rather them trade up for? And is there a guy that you like at those certain positions?
I don't think there's really anybody they got to trade up for. I think the Lions right now, even though they had their deficiencies with the secondary and losing two key pieces in the offseason, I don't think that they have to trade up. I still like Kool-Aid McKinstry. I still like Cooper DeJean. Those are a couple of guys can go at. If they decide to go edge, I mean, obviously you got to look at somebody like a Chop on that defensive line. But I think that Kool-Aid's going to be the guy. He's solid in coverage. He could be a CB1 at least for right now. And then when you also think about the Lions were top of in their run defense last year, and he's also good in run as well. So that checks off 3 boxes right there with him. And I mean, shoot, you got the Alabama guys back together right there with Brian Branch. So I think that's something to look at it right there.
I like it.
Great stuff, Kory. We appreciate you. I know you're going to be busy this week. You got the draft. You got draft coverage, which you guys can check out, mlive.com. You can follow Kory at Kory E. Woods. We got to catch up next week after this whole thing kind of.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say personally, too, thank you, Kory. I know Kory's been supporting me and the fellas since we started up Crunch Time.
Appreciate it.
Much love to you, brother, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right,
Appreciate you, Kory.
Yes, sir. Kory Woods, man. You know what? Feed my ego. That's why I appreciate Kory.